During the last conclave, I was at a conference down in San Diego, and it was kind of a tech conference. So we all had our laptops open, and we were watching, as we were at the conference, we were watching the thing with the conclave footage, and we were waiting for the time that the white smoke would show up. And we had people from various different denominations who were present at this conference. And so we're watching this, and wouldn't you know it, a gentleman from the UCC church, he was the one who whispered over me, "Father, there's white smoke!" So we had a UCC minister tell the Catholic that they got a new pope. I always remember that when I hear readings like this, because it reminds us that God often will act in ways that are kind of what we would say from left field, because God understands that sometimes we need to be surprised a little in order to accept what He's doing. And this is certainly the case in what we were hearing with Naaman, the Syrian. And sort of this kind of by happenstance way, or providence, as he brings the servant into the house of Naaman and says, "Oh, if only you would go to Elisha the prophet, then you'd be free from this." And I love Naaman's response. Elisha certainly hasn't been to any of the evangelization workshops. That certainly wasn't a very welcome out. He didn't greet him. There weren't no coffee or donuts, nothing. He sent a messenger out and said, tell him to go bathe in the Jordan. And Naaman's like, "Oh, I'm not going to go for this. I've got better, at home." Servant saying, "If he told you to do something crazy, you would have done it. Why not just do what he says?" And it's that ability to accept on the part of Naaman, but realizing he didn't come with any of sometimes the restrictiveness that happens when we think God has to act in a certain way. In seminary, we called it putting God in a box. Our theology, boxing up God and telling Him what He can and can't do. And God sometimes has to kind of blindside us to say, "You know what? I'm God. I can kind of work through this. Give me a chance." And that means, that's kind of a wonderful thing, to know that God will surprise us, not in a blindside way, but He'll just happy instances where His grace will become present in a way that we never would have considered. And it opens our eyes to a different horizon. And the people at Jesus' time just had a hard time accepting this. Accept this guy that they thought they knew, this carpenter's son, could be so much more than what they thought. And today, the saint on today's calendar, St. Francis of Rome, she wanted to go into religious life, but her parents said, "No, you have to marry this young man because that's your status." And so she did. She was very obedient to her parents. She married him and showed such a wonderful charity and humility, won over her mother-in-law and her sister-in-law, and begged at doors, seeking food and clothing for the poor, receiving orphans into the home. And all throughout those charitable works, that she found a way to serve God, not in the way that she had thought, but in the way that God was leading her through what her life was presenting to her. And sometimes we may think, "Oh, this is the way my life is going. I can't really do much around that." We'd be surprised at what we would be capable of doing if we allowed ourselves to simply be at the mercy of God and at the service of His will. That's a paraphrase from St. Ignatius. Amazing what could be possible. What could be possible in doing. And so Lent encourages us to break down those walls that keep us from recognizing what God is doing. To allow ourselves to be surprised, wonderfully surprised. And to be ready, to be capable of doing amazing things with the strength of a God who doesn't wait, but finds ways to surprise us and lead us gently.